Kia ora, I'm Jo from the Wellington City Council Waste Minimisation team. In this video, I'm going to show you how to recycle your food scraps into nutritious soil. There are lots of benefits to putting your food scraps in a worm farm. They don't end up in the landfill. The worms break down your food scraps in the way nature intended. It helps to prevent a smelly rubbish bin and can end up saving you quite a lot of money in rubbish bag costs. This is our worm farm. It's compact, well designed and really easy to set up and maintain. This top level is the working tray where the worms hang out and where you'll place your food scraps. Worms are top feeders, so they'll naturally congregate here and keep moving upward for fresh food. These two trays are your spare working trays. They remain empty until your top tray is full, and then you can swap them around. The bottom tray is the collector tray. Moisture will drain here into a liquid called worm tea, which you can harvest using the tap. There's also a worm ladder in this tray, in case the worms fall down and need to get back up. To install the tap, unscrew the nut, fix the tap to the collector tray, and tighten firmly with the nut on the inside. The legs simply clip in here, under the rim of the bottom container. Now that you've assembled your worm farm, it's time to get them moved into their new home. Start by making a bed for them. Take some cardboard from your packaging and place it at the base of your working tray. Then take your bedding block and soak it in half a bucket of water for about 15 minutes. It will expand to look a bit like this. Spread this out on top of the cardboard layer. Then add a layer of garden soil on top. Now it's time for your worms to move in. These are special composting worms called tiger worms. They're slightly redder than earthworms and they really like rich food like food waste. Gently empty them onto the bedding. They'll take a wee while to get used to their new environment, so don't worry if they look a little dormant to start with. The bedding should remain damp, like a wrung-out sponge. If it gets too dry, just add a bit of water. And if it gets too wet, add some shredded newspaper. Worms like the dark. You can place a damp tea towel over top of your worms to create an extra wee roof. This will also help keep flies out. Make sure you always keep your lid on to trap moisture in and keep pests out. If the weather turns cold, you can also put an old blanket over your whole system. For the first few days, don't give them anything to eat. Then just give them a small amount of food and wait till they've completely finished before giving them more. You can slowly increase the amount you feed them over about 6 months. This will keep your worm farm from turning into a smelly mould farm. Now you need to find a good spot for your worm farm. You want it to be nice and sheltered where the worms are not going to overheat or freeze. You could also keep it in a shed or on your porch. Make sure you put it somewhere that is easy to access, like near your back door. To keep your worms happy, you have to feed them the right kind of food. Worms like raw, bland food like avocados, fruit and veggie scraps, eggshells, and leftovers that don't have too much meat or dairy in them. Avoid feeding them spicy food, garlic and onion, too much citrus, liquids such as milk, orange juice or oils, meat and seafood, bones, and dairy. And don't put dog or cat poo in your worm farm. Cut everything up first so your worms will be able to eat it faster and it won't go mouldy. Keep a caddy in your kitchen to collect your food scraps easily. You can keep it on the bench or under the sink out of sight. This can be something you buy or just reuse a container like this one. Feed them mostly fruit and vegetable scraps and make sure they have enough bedding like ripped up paper or cardboard. They'll slowly eat through this and also lay their eggs in this layer, which is really important to keep your worm farm going. After about 6 months, your worms should be able to process a decent amount of food. Aim to feed them regularly, about every 1 to 2 days. If you notice the food in your worm farm starts to rot and smell, you might be feeding them too much. Just stop feeding them for a while and wait for your worm farm to come right again. When your top working tray is full, swap the 2 working trays around and prepare the bedding in the new empty top tray. Then start feeding the worms in this tray, and the worms will make their way up through the holes to the fresh food. If you go away on holiday, give them more food before you go, and they should be okay for about a month. The worms will self-regulate their population depending on how much food and space there is, so you don't have to worry about the number of worms in your worm farm getting too big. Once you've got your worm farm set up and your worms are all settled in, you can harvest your end byproducts. These are worm castings and worm tea, both of which are amazing fertilisers for your garden. After about a week, your worms would have left the second working tray and you'll be able to harvest your worm castings. They'll smell earthy and look like fine compost. This usually takes about 3 or 4 months. You can sprinkle your castings directly on your garden or around your trees, or add it with water and use it as a liquid fertiliser. If you don't have a garden, you can spread it around your backyard, use it as potting mix, or offer it to a neighbour or a community garden. You can collect your worm tea almost straight away. It'll drain through the system and into the collector tray. You can leave the tap continuously on with a bucket to collect the tea, or just harvest it when you need it, but make sure you empty it at least once a week. To use the tea, dilute it with 3 parts water to 1 part worm tea. Then you can use it as a liquid fertiliser. Happy composting, and thanks for helping to build a more resilient and sustainable Wellington. For more tips and other composting resources, head over to our website.